Hello, my name is Chris Malling, and I'm the president of the San Marino Schools Foundation. I have a saying in our trustee meetings, let's not punish the punctual, so I always like to get started right away. Thank you for joining us. Welcome, and for being a part of this. We really appreciate it. Before talking about tonight's program, I wanted to tell you about the San Marino Schools Foundation. The San Marino Schools Foundation empowers excellence by working with you, the parents in our community, to provide the best education for our children. Through the generous support of parents in the community, many of whom are here tonight, last year we raised over $2.5 million. Those gifts funded 21 full-time teaching positions and enrichment programs at all 4 schools, including STEM and the wellness programs. In addition to raising money to support our schools and children, we educate and empower our stakeholders through town hall meetings like this tonight. When we better understand how our schools operate, we can better support our children's education. The San Marino Schools Foundation is delighted to host, in collaboration with the school district, tonight's town hall is on curriculum and instruction. Curriculum and instruction offered in our schools is one of the pillars of a top-notch education, hence tonight's town hall topic. Our first town hall in November of last year focused on public financing for our schools. The video of this town hall can be found on your Facebook page. Our third and last town hall of the year will be held in May and will cover our facilities and capital improvements. A new committee has been formed called the Facilities Committee, 17 members strong, and we start, I think, our first meeting this month. Tonight we have a number of leaders representing the school district. I'd like to thank members of the school board, President Lisa Link, Vice President Chris Norgard, Clerk Joseph Chang, and I don't know if Corey Barberi. Not yet. Okay. And Shelley. Thank you for being here and partnering up with us on this town hall. To kick things off from the district, I'd like to hand it over to our interim superintendent, Lauren Kleinrock. Thank you.
First of all, thank you to Chris and the foundation for doing this series. It is really very important that you actually hear what's going on instead of some of the things that you have been told are going on. I've been in education for over 42 years, and I will tell you seriously, probably in about the last 7, 8, we have gone through the most intense period of curriculum and instructional changes that I have ever experienced. I don't know if our teachers would agree, but it's just kind of going 90 miles an hour. We don't know if it's over a cliff. No, actually, I think it's pretty good stuff. I think we're going in the right direction, but it has put a tremendous demand on teachers, administrators, anybody that's working in public education today, I would submit is working harder than they ever have. And as Chris said, the heart of it for your kids, for everybody else, is the curriculum and instruction. So tonight, Mr. Kurtenbach has spent a lot of time on this curriculum and instruction and stuff, and he's going to set up this format for the, I'll let him explain it in more depth, but for a lot of the questions to be answered that seem to be most on the minds of people who submitted a question. So, my pleasure, Mr. Kurtenbach. Where are we? Behind it somewhere. All right, just like that.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, let's get right into it. We first want to really welcome the people that we have up on our panel here today. We have people who stay late all the time, but they happen to be staying late for us tonight. So to my left, I have Miss Jamie Linton. She's up at the high school. We have Alana Ferre over at the middle school with Letty Aranda at the middle school as well. Dr. Michael Lynn, Miss Martha McInnes. There's Colleen Shields and Jessica Bolgen. We will be having Dr. Gates join us. He is currently stuck in traffic on his way back from a training in LA. He got stuck in the rain, as most of you probably did at some point today. And when he gets here, we'll be welcoming him in. Tonight's format is something we are trying out. I was asked to put together a curriculum and instruction presentation for everyone. And what I know very well, I think, about our community is oftentimes the things that I want to talk about aren't necessarily the things that you want to hear. And you have questions. And rather than take up any portion of this evening with me just pontificating about what I might know about curriculum and instruction, I wanted to get right to the heart of the things you really wanted to know about our curriculum and instruction. So the way that this format works, if you are a fan of Reddit, maybe you know, Ask Me Anything is you post a question. You leave that question up there, and people who go on to the site then can vote your question up, vote it down, and add their own questions as well. So those that are most uppermost in people's minds tend to rise to the top, and those are the ones where we put our focus at the beginning, and then we work our way through answering as many questions as we can in the time that we have. We had, as of about an hour ago, 35 questions that were voted up. There were many more questions on there, which we will add to at the end of the evening. And we had some questions that were voted down. We'll still be responding to those, just not tonight here with our panel. We're going to try to be focused with our panel, so if it is a question that really focuses on secondary, we're going to be, of course, looking to our secondary people to give us their take and their responses. I'll be giving mine as well, kind of kicking off each question with a district perspective. And the same goes for our elementaries. That poll everywhere is still open. So rather than getting what could be bogged down in a back and forth, which can sometimes be appropriate, but tonight that's not where we're at, if something is said or left out, or you just think of a question that you really wish you had put up but you neglected to do so, you can still add that to the list tonight. We'll be closing it tonight, and I will be posting our presentation along with answers to questions, including those that you've added this evening, so that you can refer to those later on at your leisure. So a little bit about curriculum instruction, and to the left you can really see what Lauren was talking about. Since 2010, we have had new curriculum or curriculum standards provided to us by the state of California in every core subject area, with one more coming in a year. Physical education health standards will completely be revised. The visual and performing arts ones came out in January. So when the state provides us new standards, they do not provide us with much more than that. With our new funding formula, they expect you to use the funds that you have to purchase the materials you need, provide your staff the professional development they need, and find the time to do that on your own. Dr. Gates, thank you. We saved you the first seat. Thank you. To the right, we have our instruction, and I really wanted to highlight some of the interesting statistics that I get to play around with now that I'm in my position. We have 163 teachers in our district from TK through 12th grade, and they have a combined 2,774 years of experience, which is an average of 17 years per person. That blew me away. I had to check that about 7 times because I didn't really believe that. 58% of our teachers have advanced degrees. That means that they have a master's or better with several doctorates in that as well. And we have another 30% of teachers who are just shy of earning their master's degree in our school district. So we have people dedicated to their own learning for the sake of our students' learning. And I think that says a lot about our school district and our staff. This is only, you can see one outcome. There are many outcomes, soft outcomes that you know very well. You see them in your students, but one outcome of the San Marino education is a access to post-secondary education that I think is excellent. Last year's class alone were accepted to 1,005 different colleges, or excuse me, 1,005 different acceptances to colleges and universities. We had 77% of our kids select to go to a 4-year, 16% to a 2-year, and a small percentage there to non-US college, so they went overseas. This is something we should be very proud of. It's something that I know the staff from TK through 12 take great pride in and work very hard toward preparing our kids for. All right, so the first question, this was upvoted 17 times. So the initial posting is a 0 post, and then it was upvoted 17 times. And we are going to talk about this really from a full district perspective, so we'll allow everybody to weigh in on this to whatever degree that they have. The question is, what recourse do students have when one or more teachers regularly assign much more homework than the district guidelines? So I will kind of give the pat answer, and we'll look to our staff to kind of give you an insight as to how that actually happens at a school site. Being only 1 year removed from Huntington, it was ideally you're going to the teacher and you are communicating with that teacher and saying, I'm having too much homework, I worked too much last night, I've worked too much consistently over maybe the course of several days or the last couple of weeks. Hopefully you didn't let it go that long. If nothing changes, you're then going to the administrator. And then finally, if nothing has changed from that point, you would come to me. Potentially, that would maybe go to the superintendent if nothing changed from that point. I know at the elementary through middle school level, it was a regular occurrence for our teachers to direct students and their parents at back to school night. When you get to a certain time, draw a line, write us a note, and we will take it from there. But I'm going to look to my panel and see if there's any more you guys want to offer there.
I'm going to jump in right away and just say I want to invite all of you to come out to Huntington tomorrow night for the opening of Mulan. Our kids have been working so hard, and I also wanted to acknowledge Kwok Huang, who just came from the dress rehearsal and barely put down the tech equipment there and rushed over to help us here tonight. So thank you so much, Kwok. Yeah, to echo what Jason said, we're always looking for balance. And there are times we find when we can't find it. And that's when students need to speak up and parents need to speak up and communicate with teachers, because teachers want to know. And we appreciate hearing from you first. And I can say that as a former teacher for 24 years. I valued the relationship I had with the parents of my students. Our relationship was so, it was, for me, it was sacred with the kids and really important with the parents. And I think I can speak for all of the teachers on the panel that we value that. We love hearing from you. When there's a concern, please do let us know, and we're going to work with you. Anybody want to add in?
I was just going to add, because we had this discussion the other day, that every once in a while I'll be at a meeting and a parent will say, you know, it took my child 2 hours to do homework last night, or an hour, and they were so frustrated. And I always hear our teachers say back, please, when they get, you know, if they've worked for an hour, that's more than they should be working. Stop them there, write me a note, let me know. And I think that I just so echo, Alana, you said it so beautifully, that our teachers really value those relationships and they really want to hear from you. They want to know. And I think from about, especially 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, we really encourage them to talk to their teachers too and let them know. As Mr. Kleinrock said tonight, our teachers, we've had so many changes in the curriculum. And as we're learning, using new strategies, expecting different outcomes from our students, there's a lot more writing assigned. We're all learning too, how much time does it really take a child to complete an assignment at home as well. So I think we're just constantly, we really do want that feedback.
Before I contribute my thoughts, I want to thank the Crow Library for hosting this and Quack live streaming this, and our audience for braving the rain and coming out this evening to participate in this forum. Now, I'm a parent as well. I preach and I practice, right? So I let my kids know that if it's past a certain amount of time, past 8:30, they gotta be in bed. Write a note. I'll write the note. Usually they don't want me to write the note to the teacher. And my daughters are quite good in that they actually, if they don't finish the homework by 8:30, they will get up in the morning, and actually that helps them get up early in the morning to have a better time management skill. I don't ask them to get up early, but they do it anyway. Now, I want to share this. 2 weeks ago, we had 85 students from Harbin, China visit Carver Elementary, and I think that's an annual event. Thank you, Mr. Norgard, for inviting the students. 13 teachers and a principal from China. So all fourth grade students had a chance to do a Q&A with these 85 students, fourth and fifth, mostly fourth and fifth grade students, some sixth grade students. And one question that the kids from China asked was, how long is your homework? Our fourth grade class unanimously answered about 15 minutes. And this is Miss Young's class, Karen Young's class. The answer we got in that exchange was that students spend anywhere from 2 to 5 hours on homework. And so, two very different cultures. I share this example mainly because a lot of our students do originate from China, some from mainland China, and there is a culture in America in which we focus on the whole child, wellness. We care about their health. We care about the return on investment and the law of diminishing returns. If we put in more than 1 hour, that child's attention is not going to be there. We understand these concepts, but we are also a very diverse community in terms of a mixed community. And so there is that factor going on as well. I also share this because we do have parents asking for more homework. So I say this because we have teachers on this panel, and maybe you could share your perspectives, being stuck sometimes between forces, cultural forces. So thank you very much.
Good evening. Hi. Okay. Thank you. I'm a bit of a storyteller, so particularly if you've been at the high school, you've heard this one about my son who's a junior at a school down the street. One evening, it's pretty late. My wife nudges me and she says, "Hey, babe, what's that noise?" It's pretty early in the morning, and she says, "Do you hear it?" I'm like, "No." And she, I was like, "Why don't you go check?" No, I didn't. I said that, but she's. I get up and I go check to see what the noise is, and it's my son doing homework at the table, and it's about 2:00, and I said, "Go to bed." He's like, "But go to bed." And so the notion of too much homework, particularly at the high school level, is different for students and is different per content or subject area. And so you can't take too much homework with such a broad stroke because it will be different for each child. Each child are not at the same intellectual level, although we put them in the same classrooms. And it will be different, per the content. And so I guess it really depends on your child, what he or she is studying, and if you're looking for a recourse as far as what to do, I would suggest that you encourage your child to speak with the teacher, right, regarding the homework. And if you're still struggling, or excuse me, or if they're still struggling with the time management of that, parents should have a conversation, because oftentimes it's less about just an assignment and more about why it's been assigned. So that's my answer. I'm sorry, I thought someone asked a question. So, okay.
Could one of the teachers respond and talk about what that looks like when you get some homework with the line and a note, and what one might say and what you do, rather than just the administrator?
Okay.
So I teach mostly primary, so I understand that that's probably not related. But, you know, basically I do have children who are getting along in this journey of education, and I have a slow worker on my hands. She just doesn't work very fast. So I've had to do it myself, and my experience with her teachers is, okay, thank you. It's fine. It's fine. She's doing what she, and we use the work for grading at times, but we also use the assessments that are really driving the assessment tools at the end of a unit or whatever. That's what's going to take us to the next decision-making step with instruction. So I don't think that most teachers that I am connected with are using homework to grade the students. I know at the middle school and the high school it's a little different, but at the elementary, I think that it's a matter of practice, reinforcement, and an opportunity to communicate with parents what is happening in the classroom.
Thanks, Jessica. So I'm Letty Aranda, a teacher at the middle school. And my situation is a little interesting because the students I work with are English learners. And so besides having the regular challenge of completing the work, it also takes longer because they're learning the language. So I try not to assign very much homework because I know that math is English homework, social studies is English homework, science is English homework, and I want the child to thrive. When assignments are given and they're not complete, I don't worry about it because I trust that as an educator, I am doing everything I can to provide a safe, nurturing environment where a student can learn. What happens at home is practice. We've been given instructions not to grade the student on how much homework is finished or not. Our assessments are a reflection of our teaching. So the best teaching takes place in an atmosphere where the child feels comfortable and safe. I understand that there are students who struggle with the amount of homework, of time they're spending on homework. I can also tell you that when I listen to my students, they wear a badge of honor for, well, I did homework for 7 hours, and I did homework for 10. And occasionally you'll have like, yeah, I didn't do any homework. So we have a variety, and accuracy is difficult. Last year we had lots of discussion about the detriment of too much homework. We've had teachers really take a look at what they're assigning, and not just what they're assigning, but actually stop and do the homework. How long did it take you to do this? And that was an instruction that Mr. Kurtenbach encouraged. Administrators have a prerogative to implement policies. There is nothing in our contract that says we will not give homework or give too much homework or not enough homework. There are policies that are in place. If the question here, if there is a concern, then maybe we need to look at how we are making sure policies are followed. That takes time with our administrators, and I can tell you now that our administrators are overworked and busy. We have one strong person doing curriculum and instruction for an entire district. We have one principal at each elementary school with no help. We have everyone working really hard, but to make programs work and to have policies be effective, we need time to implement, to discuss, and to study. And I'm afraid, just the way Lauren Kleinrock mentioned in the beginning, we have been going 100 miles an hour and trying to do it on third gear, and it's been rough.
You
There's-
might say you've had too much homework.
Absolutely.
Sure. I'm at the Jamie Linton. I'm at the high school, and I will say I think raising the question, and the question was raised I think over a year ago about homework and homework policies. It was a really good thing for the community to do because it basically prompts us to take a look at that again and what are the policies and what are we doing. And at the high school, it's a bit difficult to come up with a single policy because we have students who may be in 5, 6 honors AP classes, AP meaning I'm doing college level work, and then there's other students who maybe just have a schedule of regular classes. And so for there to be an expectation that those two students are going to be doing an equal amount of work at home is probably not realistic. And so I think what we said as teachers is maybe we can, there should be some sort of maximum, obviously, but that maybe we can let the students know based on the classes that they're choosing and the schedules that they're picking, what the expectation should be. And so we've started trying to do some norming exercises and estimate, get the kids to fill out some logs so that we have a better idea. I mean, we know how long we think it's taking them, but trying to get them to tell us and keep track of that and come up with some averages so that a student can look at that and say, okay, if I take AP language and honors history and honors math, and this is going to be 40 and this is going to be 30, and oh wow, now I'm looking at more time than I actually have in a day because I also play a sport, which is 2 hours a day, and I also am in the play, which can be 3 hours a day. So we're trying really hard to at least let the kids know, and the counselors are counseling them more on this. If you pick this schedule, this is what it's going to look like. And trying to encourage more balance. There are some classes, if you want to take, I teach the AP Calculus BC class. I'm giving the kids a full year of college calculus, right, at the high school level. There's an expectation they're going to be spending some time on that. But even within that group, I find some kids maybe need a half an hour a night, and there's other kids who are telling me it's more like an hour and a half for them. And so it's very variable based on student. We have, as teachers, been trying to go back and look at what our homework assignments are, trying to remove any duplication, trying to get them down as much as we can while still making sure that the kids are practicing enough to gain the skills. We've talked about what does homework optional look like, but the big fear there is that if I say, here's my suggested homework assignment, right? That's the first thing that's going to go when they run out of time. And so we're trying to come up with the right balance. I think most of us are aware, that the kids can be sort of overcommitted and overworked, and we're trying to figure out how best to help them while still getting them to do enough work that they're learning the material that we're supposed to be teaching them in the class. So I think we're struggling a little bit with it too.
Thank you all. And, one thing that I'm thinking about along this this talk tonight is we started some work on homework actually over a year ago. Because we came out into this year with several focus group meetings, and then we decided to stop those meetings, go back to our sites, and do some real work at our site level to get people's understanding at a site level up to a certain level, and to do the work that Jamie and Letty were talking about at the secondary level. My job needs to be to communicate that to you all, because we're doing a lot of work on this. This isn't something that fell on deaf ears and we thought, okay, well, we've passed it. We don't hear anybody complaining. Let's move on. It's really something we've dedicated a lot of time to this year, and we're looking forward to meeting with everybody at the end of this month to kind of wrap that up and make our own recommendations as to what we need to do to adjust our policies district-wide. And we'll be communicating that as well. All right, so we're doing one question every 20 minutes. Let's see, here we go. Okay, what can be done about such a discrepancy between two teachers for the same subject, i.e. honors English or honors math? When one teacher gives a significantly more amount of homework daily and on weekends versus the other teacher. And I think this really goes back to what we just spoke about. Is there anything you all want to add on to that?
I would like to add, thank you for bringing up the questions, particularly around homework, because what it does for us at the high school is ask us to find answers, solutions, or possible answers, possible solutions. And our departments do a really good job of working together to try to align practices, best practices. And if the document that we've created, the teachers and the students have created to kind of help them estimate what homework looks like in each particular subject matter, is the beginning. Then I'm looking forward to where we're headed with it. So, Jamie.
Oh, I would say, I read that and got a little panicky because I am a co-department chair, and I was like, honors math, and I started texting. There's only actually one honors math class that has 2 teachers. And so I immediately texted them. I'm like, do you guys give the same homework assignments? And they're like, yeah, it's in a shared Google Doc. And so, like the honors math, I can personally speak to honors math. There should never be different homework assignments between different teachers in honors math. I was like, it's not, not at the high school.
I would bet
Wait.
that question is related to the middle school.
Okay, because I was like, I had like this.
I would bet so too.
I know, I was like, wait, we work really hard on that,
No,
so
there-
I don't know, but, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I think that's the point. Like, why do you have that policy where you coordinate with your teacher, and at the middle school, there's not that coordination?
I think it's less of a policy and more of a encouragement to collaborate, and it's far less than a policy, and it's more of a culture and tradition. Yeah.
But I think the point is that solved the problem at the high school, right? And so, my experience was at the middle school is that my daughter had far more homework in the same subject than her peers. And it seems that there was no coordination or collaboration between the 2 math teachers. And so I think that's a fair question for parents to ask, and rather than putting it back on us to raise the issues and to talk to them, to instead perhaps just look at what you might be able to do to help solve that problem.
Yeah, I think that is a really difficult issue. And part of it, let's be honest, goes to an individual's philosophy. You might have and maybe coming out of this year of study that we've done on homework, teachers have reflected a lot more on their practices, and practices have changed for a lot of us. And then practices haven't changed as well for some of us. So it's an ongoing conversation. This is probably not a lot of consolation, but I would say we have mechanisms in place to work on that process. And we have planning days each quarter that teachers can take, department in the same department. We have daily opportunities with our planning periods, our conference periods. We have weekly opportunities with our contracted hour on Tuesday afternoons. So there are opportunities to have that conversation. And I can tell you that those conversations are going on. And again, it's not something that can be dictated by me, but it is something that I want to see us worked to close and bring a greater balance in some of those situations.
And
So are you saying the teachers can just basically do whatever they want?
so I'd like to piggyback on that. So here's the issue. There has to be policy, and there has to be a means to implement it. I hear what you're saying as a parent. So we've been given a directive, X amount of minutes per class. But we have a myriad of classes, a myriad of teachers. Unless our administration is given an opportunity to direct the teachers to give a specific time for professional development or professional meeting and say, this is what you're going to work on, this is what I want to see, how does it happen? It's hard, because you have one department thinking that they're on it and doing the right amount of minutes or giving the right number of assignments. Everything requires implementation. Everything requires discussion. Everything requires a standard. And unless we have time to truly implement it in an organized way, without saying, well, it'll happen, then I think it's going to be frustrating. But you have to trust that teachers are doing.
Well, can I?
No, we're gonna allow the panel to speak for the most part. You can raise your hand and I'll call on
I
you.
answer your question. So there was a question, and I think it kind of goes to the larger issue. One teacher doing A, one teacher doing B, same subject. When we start talking about what teachers are allowed to do, and we kind of get to the root of that, we start talking about academic freedom, right? And that's a thing here in the state of California, right? And so, can a teacher fundamentally do what they want to do? The answer to that question is yes, they can. What we work towards as far as aligning our teachers to culture and community values is set through the board, given to the superintendent, given to administrators, and then through relationships, we encourage and push our teachers towards title alignment to those values. And so the collaboration days and professional development, those times are important, right? To have those conversations, in a collaborative type of group so that we can work towards those values. So when you ask the questions, those push us towards kind of finding solutions. And so while we may not be there yet, we are working on getting there. So I hope that answers the question. Maybe not.
Dr. Armbruster?
I was hired at the high school in math a quarter century ago, and as an incoming teacher, I was basically told, very strongly encouraged, to get with the program and find out what my peers were doing and be consistent.
Sure.
It's been a quarter century tradition at the high school.
And I think that's also true at the middle school. I know with our new math teacher, he's worked very closely with his grade level cohort to align what he's doing in his classroom so that the lessons are covering the same material, that the assessments are created in the same fashion, and so the outcomes are similar for students.
So I actually asked this question, and this is regarding
great.
middle school. I've just been noticing a lot of discrepancy from what I hear from my daughter versus her friends. And, you know, I just don't know if the students know or have heard from the school that it's okay to tell the teacher that they're not able to finish homework, because I think for my daughter, that's just unacceptable. And they're just used to finishing their homework, and because in middle school, homework is part of their grade, they're graded on their homework. But from what I've been seeing, for example, she'll have an English assignment. I think they'll write it in class on Friday, and then she has to do further research over the weekend and memorize it, and it'll be due on Monday. And she was really sick over the weekend, and she did her best, and she, you know, still did it, and, you know, didn't get a great grade. But I just feel like I'm noticing a lot of homework assignments on a Friday that's due Monday from at least 3 subjects almost every weekend. And I'm kind of wondering how we can even enjoy our weekend, or if we're going to go out of town, or we have family. How is it that it's not enough that they have homework from every subject every weekday, but they also have to have homework on the weekends as well, and over holiday weekends?
So that is a lot of the work that we've been doing over the past few months, is a discussion exactly about weekend homework. I know at the secondary level, challenge at the middle school, I'm sure it is at the high school as well. And when we meet on the 28th, that's going to be a big source of our discussion about what we will or will not be recommending coming out of those focus group meetings. I know that you all have access to the notes that we've been taking since last year on homework, and that was a huge source of discussion throughout our entire AAC subcommittee last year, was the expectation of homework, not just on weekends, but on holidays, or that extra 3-day weekend, or no, you don't have any homework, but there's a test on Monday. So a lot of those have to do with clarifying our policies and our regulations, and Dr. Gates said it perfectly. We're working to align practices. And what Ms. Ferre said about aligning practices also has to do with aligning philosophies. And we do have some philosophies that are not easily aligned to. We have people who, as you know, at the middle school, almost give no homework. And then we have a colleague who, if you give 10 minutes against somebody who gives no homework, you're given a lot of homework now. You're given a lot more. But that work is continuing to be done. What I still encourage every parent to do is, the moment that you have that weekend assignment, that is when you should be communicating with the instructor. You should be emailing the teacher and saying, we can't do this, we have other things that we're doing. The expectation is clear with our staff, but we do the best we can to get into every room and to monitor every situation we can, but we rely on everybody else to communicate as well. I'm going to encourage you to add some questions there, but I don't want to get through just 2 questions tonight. I do want to get a little bit beyond this, so please log in and ask those questions. We're going to be having some interesting principals meetings where we're going to be answering some of these, just letting you know. But let's take a look at another one here. A question regarding the elimination of computer labs, science labs, replacing them with STEM, and the 7th grade computer course that was eliminated. So I can speak to the 7th grade computer course because I eliminated it. The 7th grade computer course was a paired course with our 7th grade science class when I got to Huntington. What it was intended to be and what it was probably pretty different. It was listed as I forget now, biotech class. So there was an attempt to connect biology with technology. And what we were trying to do then at Huntington was teach a full year of 7th grade math in 1 semester to 7th graders. So we eliminated that and started focusing on trying to get technology into the classroom with one-to-one devices and start training up our staff on using technology as a teaching tool, not just in isolation in one class, but throughout the curriculum. Also knowing that most of our new curriculum coming out of Common Core was going to have a major technological component, whether that was through the core curriculum itself or some ancillary materials. To that end, we do have one-to-one devices throughout the district, I believe, as Dr. Lynn will correct me, TK, right, through 12th grade. They're used in various levels depending on what the class is and what the expectations are. They could be used in English to write an assignment, do a presentation. They could be used in science, as they often are, to run labs and take a look at data, changing variables and how that affects things. We do have a few math programs that allow students to practice and track their progress and give them more difficult or more easy questions based on where they are. But I'm going to give it over to our panel to talk about any other enhancements, because I know at the elementary school, I don't believe STEM is only 1 to 2 times per year.
Well, I am going to correct you. It's not TK through 5th, but pre-K. Calvert starts with pre-K. Students who are age 3 with disabilities may qualify to enter our pre-K program. Our TK is age 4 to 5, students turning 5 September 2nd through December 2nd. Anyhow, I want to add to what Jason was talking about in terms of STEM. I have to thank our PTA and enrichment programs for funding STEM and the computer lab, art, music, etc. Not many people know this. The middle and the high schools, statewide, the funding comes from the state government in terms of the electives. For elementary schools, and Colleen, correct me if I'm wrong, other districts do not usually have STEM, art, music. The question pertains to STEM and the computer lab. We are a one-to-one. Actually, we have more devices than students at Harvard at this point, thanks to our PTA and our enrichment and our donors. So STEM is currently completely funded by parents. It is an enrichment program. I know there's a question later about gifted and talented education. You talk about gifted and talented education. This is the community where the contributions and donations from our parents make things possible for our students. And not just for the gifted students, but all students have access to STEM. Colleen Shields and I, we looked at our STEM schedules. We pretty much have the same exact amount of time each student has access to STEM. Just that we organize it differently because our sites are different, our teachers are different, and we're looking at it more from an innovative standpoint to see what works better, and we share notes. So at Carver School for STEM, each week students will have access. Priority is given to 5th grade students because we want to prepare students for the middle school and the excitement of having the science electives later on in their student secondary school experience. Lower grade levels, we have a shorter amount of time for students, and for kindergarten, TK kindergarten and 1st grade, we do the AB schedule. So the focus is on the upper grade levels. It's more relevant for the upper grade levels too, because the lower grade levels, the focus is on reading and the acquisition of reading skills.
So thank you, Michael. I wanted to add to some of our technology, especially our Chromebooks, were purchased by district funds a few years ago so that we could have that one-to-one in all of our classrooms. And so instead of really the model of going to a computer lab, I came from Washington State. I was in Microsoft land, so we had a lot of technology. And even 10 years ago, we were past the computer lab model because those skills are taught in the classrooms by the teachers. It's directly related to the curriculum and instruction that they're using. To just go to a lab and do a program during the lab and not go back and use it in your classroom and apply those skills is just not effective in the way that we really want to integrate technology into our students' day. And it's rare to be walking in and out of classrooms, I'm sure in both of our buildings, that students aren't using technology. And they're not on them just using games, they're not on them just using a math program following an algorithm. They're really using them to communicate with each other, to write, to research. It's really pretty exciting to see the learning that happens in our classrooms and how it's enriched with their use of technology. So we have had two somewhat different models with our STEM lab and how we schedule, because this was the brand new innovation last year. And we made some changes, Carver made some changes. We're really trying to see how the models work and what will work best, especially because we're in the process of implementing the next generation science standards and common curriculum between both schools. We could do a whole time is we go in clusters of 2 grades at a time. So K1 goes for 4 weeks, twice a week for an hour each time, so they get 2 hours a week over those 4 weeks. And then 2-3 goes to the lab for the next 4 weeks, and then 4-5. And actually, when we were looking at this, I sat down and looked, and they actually have 8 hours more of 8 hours more of STEM lab time than they used to have when it was just a science lab. So they go 3 times a year. So it's a more intensified model for how we're delivering the instruction in the STEM lab. And I'm sure we'll have lots of good discussions this summer as we look at our 2 programs, how it's worked, what the teachers have found to be most helpful, how it's helped us implement the curriculum at the elementary level, because this year our teachers have also, and thank you, Mr. Kleinbach, for getting this going, but have been getting some incredible support and instruction through the UCLA Center X, has come to work with our teachers, started this on our 2nd year, and this year all of our teachers have been involved with joint grade level sessions. So the 4th grade teachers from Valentine get together for the full day with the 4th grade teachers from Carver. They go through, they spend the entire morning working together with the UCLA Center staff, and then the afternoon putting lesson plans together to be able to implement what they've learned in the morning. It's really been a great experience, and our STEM teachers have been able to participate in all that as well. So it's, we're trying some new things. We're trying to make it be a meaningful experience for our students, and really to help us also implement the next generation science standards, which are really exciting, but take a lot of work, and we're having to learn a lot of new skills and learn a lot of science too.
And we have some questions about NGSS, but I'm worried we won't get to them. And so I do want to thank you for bringing that up. The plan for training this year was actually developed by the teachers. When I was given this position last year and the task of, hey, keep the Center X thing going, okay, what's that going to look like? I was able to get time with all of the teachers who had been trained at each site, including the high school, and just really found out this is what they need, this is what they wanted, and UCLA is great at working with school districts and really modified their entire instructional plan to meet our needs. And they have been raving about our staff. I had a meeting last week with the head of the Center X program for science, and I just sat for 20 minutes and heard her talk about how our staff come in completely ready and engaged to learn about how to do this, and they're coming up with some phenomenal units. And her recommendation to us was, do not adopt anything right now. They're reviewing a lot of the curriculum that was approved, and they're finding most of it is not what UCLA Center X would consider good. She didn't use even the word great, she said good. And she said that her team is looking at whether or not it's set up the way that NGSS is set up, which is to focus on phenomena and research. And what she's finding is it's not. So from that, we're going to pilot a few of the programs that we are looking at and think do have merit, and we're going to be walking them through UCLA and saying, what do you guys think of this? What's your feedback? So that we use our time valuably next year. Any other comments on this? panel? No? Okay. All right, this is pretty much focused at the high school level, but you all prep them for that. So, does the high school allow students to apply college class credit from PCC or community college or an extension program or summer course towards high school credit or as a replacement for a high school class? If not, why, and what is being done to change the policy when it is allowed at other high schools? So currently, we do not have any official agreements. You know that one of the subcommittees in the AAC is studying dual enrollment. As a matter of fact, we had that meeting this evening. And many districts around our area, TCUSD, Pasadena, those are the two we talked about today, so that's what's coming to the top of my head, are in the first or second year of such agreements where they make connections with a local community college. We haven't made any of those agreements yet, but we're exploring those ideas. We're exploring what that could mean. There are many different ways that you can make connections, both through pathways and other ways. And we're looking at what the pros and cons are for the district as a whole, but also for students. All those notes are also available online. I know everybody loves to read, but Dr. Gates.
You know, San Marino High School, San Marino Unified School District, has been successful in educating students for a very long time. You know, I don't know if you know, but we just won the California Distinguished School Award. Okay. So here's the thing. So the paradigm of education is shifting, right? Like one of the slowest moving industries is moving just a bit faster now. And so when we look at, you know, community colleges, extension courses, and how some high schools are now starting to, or have been, or exploring, looking into, you know, different options. That wasn't the case, you know, a while back. And so, you know, the reason, you know, districts and high schools explore that is because they, you know, there wasn't the type of success that they were seeing initially. And so, but now the tide is shifting just a bit. It's shifting from ensuring that all students graduate, right? And ensuring that all students are prepared to go to college, to ensuring that all students graduate and are prepared to go to college based on their interest. And so, and that's a bit of a different shift, and there's a million reasons for that shift. One that I would like to point to is this climate of competition that didn't exist before in the world of public education, in the sense that you know, the school district was kind of placed in the middle of a community, and everyone sent their child to that school, but, you know, gave them their little backpack and their little lunchbox, and they walked to school. Well, you have way more options now, and that's great. That's great for students. Not all students want to be in BC calculus, you know, and although Ms. Linton is great, some kids want to do this and some kids want to do that. And so part of our challenge is just making sure that as an entire community, we see the value of what we have traditionally done, right? And that's great. And the question that we will have to ask ourselves is, as we look to explore CTE, dual enrollment, if you just call it this interest-based education model, do we value this as much or more, and do we get the same results or better results? And so when I touched down last year, that's what our community was saying. Like we're interested in CTE, and so you know, per our superintendent and support from the district, we started to look into that. And so currently, the high school is working on expanding CTE pathways. Dual enrollment was a bit of a later conversation. That conversation is not on the forefront of our kind of like initiatives now, but it's definitely something that we're looking into. Because the idea is to provide students much more of what they are interested in learning. Yeah, I think that's it. How do I do, Coach?
Couldn't have said it better.
Okay. Thoughts, questions?
Anything to add?
Okay.
So one of the final things that we'll say on this is that, as I've heard Dr. Gates eloquently state before, there's only a few things you can do very well at one time. And I know you have three really like big focuses that you're working on this year, and probably about 40 little focuses, and then another 100 tiny ones. But this is obviously something that's at the forefront, as it was something we were asked to study in the AAC. So our job this year is to gather as much information and ask as many questions as we can, providing that information to the high school, to the school board, and to the superintendent. Because we're able to go in and spend some time asking the questions of school districts like, how many kids are actually taking advantage of this? Is it 30 or is it 300? We found out today, one district it's 30 and one district it's 300, and they're with the same college. So it all depends on interest, and it's something that needs to be thoughtful and approached in a way that doesn't put our students at a disadvantage. And I say that understanding that our students are extremely competitive, and where we will tell them, take what you're interested in, take your time, make a good choice. Then they look and go, well, I don't know. My best friend's taking that class. I probably should take that class. I want to be up there too. I'm not really interested in Calc BC. I'm really bad at math, but I want to be one of those people that is looked at like my friend is. You know, and my son had to struggle with that, and he also had to struggle with dropping one of his APs because he wanted to do that. So he took 4 as a senior, and good on him, but he had to drop one. So we have to keep that in mind as well, because we need to make sure that the investment we are putting into wellness is one that we're carrying into every conversation and every decision that we're making. It can't just be what is academically well, but emotionally and mentally well is also.
Can I just add one more comment? I'll keep it to 15 seconds. Thank you. The truth is, we are a small school district, and the high school has 1,109 kids, if I did the math correctly. And we want to offer more, but we can't offer everything. And so when you're looking to compare us to other schools or other school districts, you have to be careful to make sure that you're looking like apples to apples, right? Even if we added an additional 100 courses, it's still only 1,100 kids, you know, and so and there has to be teachers and classrooms and materials to support those courses. So it's important that we see that and know that we're working to do as much as we can. That was 45 seconds.
How are students' feedback on courses, workload, and the rigor of its exams taken into account? Is this evaluated and acted upon while students in the course, and or with regard to future offerings of the course? Interesting thing about this question, I put up just secondary, but I know that there have been some feedback loops at the elementary level that have taken place, or at least I learned that this week from my 2 elementary colleagues. We do not have an official course feedback that comes from the district level in terms of how did you like that course, what did you think of it. I know that at the middle school level, I did have several teachers who would regularly have those conversations with kids, and I had a couple who would do an end of course, end of semester, end of year sort of feedback evaluation. They would use that to make some adjustments to their teaching as well. But I do not have a formalized process that comes out of the district. I don't know if anything has since been implemented since I left, but if anyone would like to add to my comments.
Well, I would say on an informal level, we do get feedback and we get it really quick. With my new 8th grade math teacher, the first exam, he was in my office by his prep. Oh my gosh, Mrs. Foray, I've done something terrible. I'm so worried. Some of his kids, I think most of his kids did not finish the test. And so he knew that he'd created a test that was too difficult. So immediately, we worked on it. We got it, we attacked it, we took care of it, we communicated with parents on it. He collaborated with his colleague on it. We got that straightened out right away. So parents were not shy about letting us know. We heard right away the concerns. Students were very concerned as well. So I feel like we're responsive to that kind of information. And we want to make sure that the kinds of assessments that our students are given are the right kind, that they're assessing the information accurately, fairly across the classes.
I was lucky enough to have to speak with the math team this week, and your comment made me recall one of our math teachers switched assignments. So their first moment in this new grade level, asking how it went, they needed to make an adjustment to their assessments as well. And the process was very simple. All right, kids, here are my ideas for how we're going to assess this. I could break this up into a couple of tests. We could do it all at once, but that kind of affects how you study. What do you feel is most comfortable to you? Teacher took all that feedback. That's the way they decided to do the assessments, is the way that the kids said it would be best for them. So I think that's happening all the time, and it happens very informally. But I know that they do want the best for their kids in their classrooms. Not everybody does it. Again, that's something that we want to encourage, and we could do more to do that. Anything from the secondary level, primary?
We have the benefit of having, the interim superintendent who's the high school principal for a very long time, and provides us with quite a bit of his historical context. And so I was just whispering with Ms. Linton here about more of a protocol that our teachers would survey students at the end of the semester, or at the end of each semester, and to give feedback. And it was just for teachers to be reflective on, how their students felt that the class went for them. And so we were just talking about the fidelity of how we do that work now. And so thank you for asking the question, because we'll look into, what we do now and, and how we can better support kids. So thanks.
All right, for the high school. There seems to be more demand for AP classes than there are available slots. What is being done to address this shortage to ensure that all interested students can take the classes?
So in short, there's a few things. We just recently came off of 2 weeks of AP honors preview, where students had an opportunity to sit in we just call them accelerated courses with the teachers to understand the context of the content of the course, like what they recover, homework load, so students can also understand like what their course expectations would be, but also kind of like measure their interest in the course, right? So that's kind of where you want to start. We also had a AP honors night that we provided information for parents to help them do the same thing. And so the idea is to make sure that students and parents are educated on the courses, because one narrative is that we have some students that go into AP courses not because they're interested in taking these AP courses, but they're interested in the bump in the GPA. So it's almost like if we remove that additional weight or honors point, would you still be interested in it? Which adds to some other issues that we're, or concerns that we're working on. And so, but then on the other side of it, right, there are some students who are interested in taking AP AP U.S. history, excuse me, and you know, that came up last year. You know, we're working on the curriculum for that, and we believe that will be up and going next year. And so we're working to provide students with the opportunities that they're requesting, but we're also working to provide them with the information and make sure that parents and students are educated to make sure they're choosing AP courses for the right reasons. So I hope that helps.
So the question was, there seems to be more demand for AP classes than there are available slots. We understand that there are no caps at the high school on the total number of students that can enroll in the class. So there are classes and there aren't any caps. And then students who meet the prerequisites are typically only denied an opportunity if there's a conflict with another class. So there are classes available.
So I think that the question was a little confusing to me because I wasn't sure whether it was there aren't enough different types of AP classes, like my kid really wants AP European history and you don't offer that, or whether the question was like somehow referring to maybe we have some sort of like maximum number of kids, like only 25 kids can take whatever it is, you know, AP Calc AB or whatever the class is. And what we usually tell the kids, and of course with a small school you can never make absolute promises, but when I did the preview of the BC Calc class, one of the kids said, how many students will you take? And I was like, as many as are qualified and want the class. And I said, you're not in competition with your friends. You're in competition with yourself and with your own desires. And, you know, you have to decide which classes you want and which you don't. But if for some reason we had 50 kids that wanted the class and were intellectually ready and qualified to take it, there's nothing stopping us from making 2 sections instead of 1. So I don't think we cap in that way, but maybe the question has to do with how many AP classes are available. Again, that's, I think, a smaller school issue, because you can only do so much. You know, not knowing who asked the question, I'm not sure what it's really getting at, but we try not to, if a kid meets whatever the prerequisites are, we try to get them in the class, I think is what I'm saying, yeah.
I think you answered both of them.
Yeah, and you know, and we make sure that we standardize the prerequisites. You know, we're really working to make sure that students who are interested and prepared to take accelerated courses have an opportunity to, and if there's a big enough voice for an additional course, we'll explore it. If we can do it, we'll do it. So.
Okay. Foreign language. So research demonstrates that young children learn foreign languages more easily than adolescents. Are there plans to introduce foreign language at elementary schools? If not, why? Well, I know we studied this also in the AAC as a subcommittee 3 years ago, I believe. And one of the outcomes of that had, well, a really fully well thought out, developed plan, but also an understanding of the challenges to implementing such a plan. Because Letty was one of 2 co-chairs of that, I think. Do you want to talk about what some of those outcomes were?
Sure. So the Academic Advisory Council did have a study on this. We went to LACO, the LA County Office of Education. We went to a 2-day training. We did research. We read studies that took place. We read about studies that took place in Florida, New York. We went way beyond what we were even given. Our findings were that our district did not have the population that would ensure a strong dual immersion program. So a strong dual immersion program requires 1/3 of our students, and we were looking at a Spanish dual immersion program. So we would have needed 1/3 of our students to be fluent Spanish speakers, 1/3 of participants being culturally familiar with the Spanish culture, and then 1/3 who had zero knowledge of the language. And we found that an implementation of the program would require an alteration to our district transfer policy. There was also a huge cost issue, which we were informed we simply did not have the funds for, because a strong program requires also an electronic component, where we would use an enhanced program. Yes?
Is it ever considered to do Chinese? You're saying that we have all these English learners, and so we obviously have Chinese that are native speakers, but a lot of English speakers. Like, I get what you're saying about Spanish, but then why not just go, well, what other languages could we maybe support? And Chinese seems like a no-brainer for families.
Well, at the time, the question was brought up, but the directive was to look at dual immersion for the Spanish language. I don't know exactly why we only stuck to Spanish, but that was our mission, to provide information regarding a Spanish dual immersion program in San Marino.
So to not waste all that research, could they go back and apply using like a Chinese standard?
Absolutely. We do have the population that would ensure a strong program. However, it is a very costly program because we would have to purchase some kind of a program that would allow students to practice at home, to practice in the classroom. And we looked at 2 or 3 different companies, and they were all very, very expensive. The study was well done. We even put out a section of how to implement it. It's there, but the big factor is cost.
And what's an example of part of it?
The study was 3 years ago, so I don't remember the exact numbers. Yes. It was thousands. It was thousands per section, like K1, 3, 5, something like that. But this was 3 years ago, and I don't have the study in front of me.
So I was on the committee, I think I was also on the committee, but I wasn't a part of all of the meetings that we had. I also remember there was a big issue it's a staffing issue also, especially with a small district, because let's say you start with a K1 cohort group of students, then you've got to make sure you have a teacher who can move to 2, 3, and then 4, 5. And when it's a small district, that just makes it so hard to do. My first few years at Valentine, I didn't hire any new teachers. Then we had a few years where we were able to, but because we're really small, we don't have a lot of turnover in our staff, and you've got to you have to have a teacher who is fluent in both languages, right, if you do a dual immersion program. Separate from that, though, I know is that issue of, well, how could we just offer another language to our students, maybe like we do science or like we do music? And Michael and I, Mr. Lynn, we've had some discussion, Dr. Lynn, sorry, we've had discussions about that back and forth. And again, it becomes, there's kind of 2 issues. One, again, it's a resources issue, a financial issue, as it is now. Our PTAs pay for all of our enrichment teachers, and it's really it's a lot of money that we ask our PTAs to raise for our current programs. And then the other piece is that scheduling. As it is now, it is really challenging, and I think that teachers could speak to that with our school day, the number of hours that it currently is, to add in another specialist block of time so that it can be meaningful enough that students can really learn the language, not just learn a few words, every couple of weeks. So there's that issue. And then I know Dr. Lin could speak to a little bit more, but we have been looking into some possible after-school programs. But again, that only can reach a smaller group of students. And one of the things we really try to do at the elementary is make sure that whatever we offer, we try to offer it for all students, to have that chance to kind of dip their foot into art, dip their foot into music, into a foreign language. So that's always kind of one of our, I think, priorities in how we decide to do programming. But it is something we continue to discuss. It's just both time and resources to have it move forward.
Yeah, I just want to add to the fact that not just the enrichment programs are, completely contributed by mostly PTA, I should say, and enrichment. We have an enrichment fund separate from PTA, and also the foundation helps us with the part of the music program. But last year, the PTA allocations committee looked at one of the proposals for an allocations item, which is the foreign language program at the elementary level. We had a great amount of discussion within the committee about this, and it's something that there's solid research behind how elementary students at the younger age level, they do much better when they have access or they're able to absorb information in multiple languages. By fourth grade, they tend to excel. And we see studies after studies, and it's almost a trend. So we know the research is solid. What can we do to bring it in-house? I visited Field Elementary in Pasadena. They were lucky to receive the FLAP grant. I don't know exactly what that acronym stands for, other than foreign language something, foreign language assistance program. So in 2003, for 3 years, I think it's a federal program, they were able to utilize that grant to initiate their program. I followed that program because a former principal of the middle school in Temple City, he sent his kids there, and they created the Field Elementary program, dual immersion program, created a school within a school in such that parents would donate just into the dual immersion program, but nothing else. So it kind of creates two schools within a school. Not to say that's a challenge we cannot overcome, but those are factors that we considered even last year when that allocations proposal was presented. But this is not something that we can say, oh, we can't do it because of credentialing, because of scheduling. Anything's possible. I've seen pretty much the impossible happen in this school district, just that there are factors. It really helps when we visit other schools and school districts to see what's possible and how they overcame these barriers. Not anymore. 2003 to 2006, that was when that was available.
Can I say this really quickly? So you may not know, but I started in like primary, so like I'm a real like Piaget type person versus like a Montessori type person. And there's a reason why when you see world languages in elementary schools, they're dual immersion schools, like dual immersion versus I have a course, right? And so I just want to say that. Oh, great. So the idea that every day, right? Every day throughout the curriculum, this world language is integrated, right? Because that's how young students at this time learn, right? Versus taking a course, on a will, going once a week to Spanish versus being immersed in it all day, every day. Yeah. for 5 years.
So, Dr. Gabe, you're saying that right now we want the dual immersion program is you're learning the same, the language every day.
It's quite a different program.
And then from when you grow up, that you learn once a week, is that what you're saying?
No, I'm a heritage speaker and it's not Spanish. No, so in high school, you go, one period every day. Dual immersion is you are immersed in the world language every day, every class, every moment.
I understand that, but what are you trying to say?
Kids learn language with immersion versus.
So you're trying to tell us that the differences between the immersion program versus the world language program?
Versus yes.
I
Got it.
Can I ask you a question at the same time? What is the benefit as a school district to want to offer the dual immersion program?
I think it's based on interest.
I understand it's based on interest of the
Other community, yes.
So if we have interest and then we propose to you and then based on the interest, at what point the school district will decide that this is a good interest?
So I'm at an airman first class level, like that's a 4-star general level. So that goes to when you want changes that large, right? Because that's a huge programmatic shift. You give that to your board members, and then that's a huge shift for particularly for a small community like that.
A shift like that for any community, because they've just done that in Redondo Beach, have significantly more elementary schools, but they switched one to dual immersion. It's been going on for the past 4 years. They started with kindergarten. But they have the ability to do this. How many of their teachers are BCLAD, that's bilingually cleared to teach a language along with content? So they found that out first. Next, they were, how many of you would be interested in teaching that way? Do we have enough primary teachers to teach a full school of kindergarten? We do. We'll start. Do we have enough to teach a full year of first grade? No, we don't. Okay, maybe we need to wait now. Or we need to see how many teachers we can hire next year who are BCLAD, who can teach primary first grade. Because what I've seen with many districts is the short-sighted plan of dual immersion's great, which it is. It's fantastic. We had a program in Santa Monica. I can't imagine how to learn geometry very well at all, much less in Spanish. But the kids were doing it in high school. And they fail because they have a short-sighted plan of let's get it going, and then they don't have the staff to put in place. Or they don't have the ability to fund the additional staff needed to keep it going. So it is something that is unfortunately a huge resource, and beyond any program that we would purchase, electronic or otherwise, the real resource is the human resource. 2 teachers, after 2 years, whether your dual immersion program succeeds or fails, they get a job. So you have to have a long-term plan, a long-term commitment, and one that is well thought out and methodical for it to be a success. And you have to have interest. Because I've also heard of districts, and this is how Redondo is doing it, 1 school, but 5 others that don't. Okay, we have 2 schools. If we have 1 school, Valentine, that does it, Carver doesn't, what happens when I don't really want my kid to be dual immersed? I just want them to go over to Carver because Mr. Lin seems like a nice person, although, who knows. So then your dual immersion program starts to go down, okay? So it's something that if we were to do it, this is a long-term and time-intensive study that needs to be done. And then the commitment needs to be one that says we kind of have to plan to start this many years out in order to make it work. We probably have time for one more question the way these are going, but we'll see. Parents and students have great concern, discrepancies. You know what? I'm going to move past this one.
Actually, please don't.
You want to do this one?
Yeah, because I'm going
All
to
right.
dissect it just a
Okay,
little bit.
go for it.
Because we've answered we've touched base on most of this, and I want to jump down to the mental health and success. Okay, because we're doing a lot of work in that area, particularly at the high school, and I know across the district as well. And it's extremely important to know, for me to say here, particularly because it's been recorded and live streamed, that the work around ensuring that all students are balanced and well-balanced and healthy learners is not cannot be done at the high school alone. Okay. It cannot be done in the classroom alone. It is not that technical of a problem. It is far more of an adaptive problem that's going to take the entire community to address, meaning that what happens in the classroom and on the school site is largely based on what the community is asking, right? And so it's like, hey, Ivy League, which is great, right? But not for every kid, right? And it's not our choice or job to determine which kid. It's just to prepare them best for their best opportunity for success in whatever school they go to. And so we have extremely rigorous courses, and so we want our students to know that because they have to make choices, and we want our parents to know that. And so when we start talking about mental health success, what does that look like for our entire community? So that's what I wanted to say. I hope that was cogent enough for you to understand.
Anyone else want to jump in on that health and wellness piece?
Well, I would just want to say that health and wellness issues have been alive and well at the elementary for, quite a few years. We have a second step program where our school counselors are in classrooms every single week. They're teaching social emotional skills. I just watched this 4th grade lesson the other day that was just fabulous, but it was on how the brain works and what happens when one part of your brain has this emotion and the other part's thinking, and how those two go together, and how we learn to balance that, and how at different stages of your life, when your brain's developing and growing, you're responding differently. And I feel that for us, that has been an emphasis over the last 4 to 5 years. And I know that it's a constant issue that we talk about with the pressures that we have for children, and we do see that anxiety at really young ages for students who want to do really well, want to be perfect, want everything to always be successful, and they feel it at really young ages. And so I think it's why for us we've started programs like that. And this last year we've been implementing a program called Mind Yeti, and Mrs. Bolgen can talk about it in the classroom, but the other day I was out in the playground. We, under our new play structure where the kids love to sit on that nice soft turf, and they were doing Mind Yeti, and the sun was out, and so that the blue light was coming through the shade structure, and they're all sitting there listening to the tape, and we're trying to teach kids, how to practice mindfulness even at a young age. We have one tape they listen to when they come in from recess, because you might come in upset and you need to stop and have a healthy mind and a healthy outlook on life and try to keep balanced. When I first came to San Marino, I can't believe now it's been 9 years, but I was a little concerned. I came from a high-performing district, but I'd heard so much about San Marino being the number 1 in the state, and I thought, I'm just going to have a lot of pressure all the time from parents with more homework, and kids have to study. And I actually think that as a community, as parents, we do a fabulous job of trying to help our kids stay balanced, that the emphasis is not just on academics. Our kids do scouts. I mean, all you have to do is open up the Outlook and the Tribune and see how involved our students are in athletics, in, I was going to say sports, they're athletics, right? In sports, in scouts, gymnastics and piano, all the other things that they do. And I know then you run the risk of too many things to have your kids involved in. But the amount of time that even our young students spend giving back to their community, I think is really impressive. So I definitely agree, Dr. Gates, that it is a TK preschool effort that we have to do to help our kids develop those skills and know that it's more than just academics. There's also social emotional skills that we can teach, and we can help students be more successful in handling conflict and understanding how people might think differently than we think. I think the other thing that is really, I've seen the difference in, is as we've implemented Common Core, our students spend so much more time talking to each other. You know, we've moved so far away from being in a row, you've opened the book and you're on page 49. Instead, so much of the learning that happens, students are communicating with each other, they're talking to each other, and that just opens up the ability to communicate and to step into other people's shoes. And I also think that that really leads to healthy mental attitudes, when you really have a chance to learn how to talk to somebody else and how to recognize someone's feelings, and suddenly find out that they've had a really different life experience, even by second or third grade, than someone else, and so they have a different perspective. And I think that all those things all work together to help our students be healthy.
I think it's interesting that, I mean, we haven't actually had counselors at the elementary school for a very long time. It's really, I think, been maybe the last 5 years or so. And as a teacher, it was something that, and I'm sure many other people felt it was a great need. I don't think you can wait to the high school to start solving wellness and mental wholeness aspects. I really think it has to start at the home. It has to start with each one of us. And we are a very demanding community. We have a lot of high expectations of our district, of our children, of our teachers. And it is an interwoven effort for us to really look at the whole child and really meet those needs. I think having a full-time counselor was a huge step. I know that our counselor at Carver does small groups for kids with all kinds of friendship issues and impulse issues that are also, of course, then taken into the classroom. I know that Colleen had brought the Making Meaning program that we're using at in the elementary level, that we're discussing literature and making predictions. Kids are talking in partners, building that community. But I think this question kind of goes back to, part of it is that feeling of some of the unfairness that kids are maybe feeling and parents are feeling. I think that there has been a lot of discussion at the district level and at our grade levels. We have regular grade level meetings to really try we realize that this is a concern. And teachers are individuals. They're going to have an individual approach to learning, and that's part of the great part of, I think, when we think about our teachers that we have had. We wouldn't want everything to be the same, but there is a level of fairness and equity that is important. And I think it's important that parents are bringing this up and are raising this concern, and that we're addressing this at the district level.
Can I just say something? I'm a Brownie leader, and 2 weeks ago I had a parent call me and say, my daughter can't come to your Brownie meeting because she has too much homework. This is third grade. I'm just putting it out there again. I don't want to badger on homework, but it was really disheartening to me, thinking, like, we're going to do something really fun today, and your daughter's stuck at home, like, because you feel and she's known to be in a class with a lot of homework. So it was just, and it was a Sunday afternoon. It wasn't like after school, and so just.
I think that gets back to some of that communication. I don't think there is a third grade teacher in this district that wants a child on Sunday or any night overburdened with homework. So different kids do have different approaches, different levels of readiness, and a third grader really can't communicate that. It has to come from the parent. But I think as we build those communications through even later elementary school and middle school and high school, kids will be taking that on more and more. And it's a dialogue that, no, I think it's important.
Are scared to say anything, so I don't.
I mean, I do a little survey in my own classroom. I survey the kids every trimester.
We loved her.
I love it now.
It's the best homework policy.
Well, my daughter Grace is in her class, and yes,
But I think a lot is about communication. I agree.
I think one of the things you can take back is, you said, and I heard this at the middle school a lot as well, we're afraid to say anything. I haven't heard anybody up here be defensive. We really do want to learn to do it better. We want to hear it. And the executive oversight and administrators having a clue, it's, Dr. Gates, how long would it take you to go to every classroom and spend enough time to know what all the homework assignments are in a day?
do it tonight.
There you go. So we rely on everybody being a part of this process. You said a beautiful thing. It can't all be done in the classroom. It can't all be done at school. So we need that communication to say, we're having this problem, and it needs to be specific, and that helps us do the work that we need to do. I'm going to do that, Dr. Gates.
Thank you.
I have a question that may or may not lead to a follow-up.
Okay.
So the norming homework is being done at the high school. Is the norming homework being done at the middle school as well?
I think Jason probably has a good background on that with the homework committee, and he can probably address that. I know that in some of the meetings that we've had as a staff, we've talked about how teachers are doing that. I remember hearing a sixth grade teacher talk about, with her students, about how long an assignment was taking and getting feedback. I heard an eighth grade teacher doing the same thing.
The reason I bring that up is I think the idea that the high school is proposing in terms of saying this is the level of expectation you should have for AP English, this is the level of expectation you should have for honors math. I would love to see that at the middle school level, because honestly, there's a lot of middle school, either that or just find a way to make it so that everyone knows what's expected, because ultimately what's driving this is the parents' fear that they're going to get shut out at the high school if they don't get into it at the middle school. So they're worried, if I'm not on the honors track, I can't get in because I don't have the honors prereq that gets me into the AP class. And then to get to the AP, you have to jump through 3 extra hoops to get there. And you may not even still get there, even though, because, for whatever reason. Anyway, my point being that I think that ultimately is what ends up driving a lot of the middle school fears, and that filters its way down to the elementary, where you start to worry, if I don't get on this train now, I'm never going to get on the train, and then you build this anxiety into your child unknowingly because you're worried that your child will miss out on something down the line.
Can I speak to that? So one thing is, as a parent, and I'm going to challenge all of our parents to do the same thing, is we have to work as parents to pull that anxiety out. That's part of our job as parents and as partners, as educators, okay? I'm doing that with my son now. It's not an easy thing to do, but it is my responsibility, okay? 2, I know that the high school and the middle school are working to eliminate that ambiguity in what's expected in a way that last year, coming out of honors English, there was a test of some sorts to understand if a student was prepared. This year, that's not there. So the honors English rolls into honors ninth grade English. And that work came simply through communication and collaboration with the English teachers, supported by Alana and our department chairs. And so it's happening, it's happening in real time, so, but again, it's not a that's a technical fix.
And I think this actually, at the heart of it, goes to what is the purpose of our middle school? Is our middle school a prepping ground for high school? Or is our middle school a time to allow our children to develop into who they will eventually become as they explore it in high school? Because I think that's what the elementary school does really well. The elementary school prepares our students to enter the middle school so that they can start exploring and go through all that funky hormones and all that craziness without feeling the academic pressure because they've been prepared so well from elementary. And I think it's hard for middle school if you're not sure if your goal is to figure out who you are as a 12-year-old versus making sure I get
Yeah.
to honors.
Can I say, I think there's a little more fear about if I'm not in honors, I'm never going to be in honors than there needs to be. I would say a little more than 10% of my honors math analysis class this year came out at regular algebra 2 because they wanted to. And they felt like that was their interest and they had the math, they had stronger math skills and they wanted to give it a go. I'll tell you, it doesn't always go well because they don't, they're not great at always knowing where they are academically, but we do really try to give the kids a chance. An anecdotal story is we had a kid in regular geometry getting B's and got to algebra 2 and the teacher was like, wow, you're like suddenly really good at math. You want to try honors next year? And the kid was like, oh, I okay. And so first honors class was honors math analysis. And at the end of the year, I was like, why didn't you ask for BC Calc? And she said, oh, do you think I should? And I was like, well, yeah, what does the rest of your schedule look like? She went and talked to her counselor and kind of said, what do I like, what don't I like? Dropped something else, I don't want to say what. And then, but in favor of taking the honors math because she realized that that's where her interests were and that's what she had become really good at. And so I think there's a fear there that if I don't do it now, I'm never going to get to do it that isn't fully justified.
Better job at that.
Well, let me
That's what I think that's what it is.
I love you.
Part of it is that you don't know what you're going to be good at when you're 6th grade.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. And that goes to what I'm saying, like the middle school philosophy, like what are we really preparing our kids for?
Can I ask that same question of the high school? Like, what are we really preparing our kids for? Right? And if we're going to ask it of the middle school, we got to ask it of the high school, and we got to have to ask it of the elementary schools in the same way where I said I'm more Piaget than Montessori. Right? What are we preparing our students for? Right? Because if we're preparing them for college, then I think we're doing a great job. Right? But if we're preparing them for life, we say, are we doing the best job that we can do? And I think that's the overarching question, right? I think that's why there's a shift in education. I think that's why the shift is more pointing towards interest, right? Versus, what college am I going to? And that's why we start talking about fit over ranking, And so these are the questions that I think that we should be exploring as a high school, as teachers and administrators and parents. That's why it's such an adaptive problem, right? It's not, we can say, hey, we're going to eliminate all barriers from 8th grade honors English to 9th grade honors. That's a technical fix. But the bigger issue is like, what are we preparing them for? And so as they start to explore CTE, as we talk about mentorships, as we talk about internships, right? Where they're developing skills that's going to help them be successful in life, not just academically, right? That's the bigger question, and I think that's the question I think we fundamentally are asking ourselves.
Add to that, are we just preparing our kids to get into a college without necessarily preparing them to be successful?
Okay, because we're over time and we actually do get kicked out of this room, we're going to say thank you to our panel who stayed here late this evening. We're going to say thank you for questions. And I'm sure we can continue a lot of these